Alright fellas, this weekend coming up we have one of the biggest fights of the year with Beterbiev and Bivol facing off for all of the belts, unifying all of the belts for the first time in the 4-belt era. Beterbiev, known for being the only active world champion with a 100% KO rate, is coming in undefeated at 20-0, while Bivol, the master of the Soviet style, is coming in with also an undefeated record of 23-0. This is a true 50-50 fight which I've seen many struggle to try and break down, or just miss the mark completely. Like, some of this stuff is just horrendous. I want to have a definitive look at this fight and break down everything you need to know before the big match. A look at both fighters, the undercard, and of course the big fight itself. Can Bivol withstand Beterbiev's power? Or can Beterbiev solve the puzzle of Bivol's style? But enough waffling, let's get right into it. Bivol versus Beterbiev is a fight that has been wanted for years. Both have been world champions since 2017. Bivol won the WBA belt after his knockout victory over Trent Broadhurst, being elevated from the interim belt, while Beterbiev won the IBF in 2017, the WBC in 2019, and the WBO in early 2023. Both have been reigning world champions for years now, and a unification or now undisputed fight has been up there on the most desired fantasy fight list for many of us. There are many reasons we haven't seen this fight happen until now. The first major one was of course promotional differences. Since 2018, Bivol has been partnered with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom, and since 2019, Beterbiev has been with Bob Arum's Top Rank. Prior to the Saudi involvement, many of you know how rare it was for big promotional crossovers, especially when you have conflicting network agreements. Other than that, there are a couple roadblocks that stopped this fight from happening. Following a certain thing going on with Russia, the WBC would not allow Russian or Belarusian boxers to fight for the WBC title. Although Bivol was born in Kyrgyzstan and lives in the US, because of his Russian citizenship he was effectively barred from fighting for the WBC belt, halting any potential fight. Although with Saudi involvement their positions suddenly seem to change. I'll let this tweet from Mark Ortega, who questions the head of the WBC, speak volume. Yet now with the Saudis involved, this whole game has changed. With a fractured state of modern boxing, and with Riyadh Season wanting to make these big fights happen, they have offered enough money to finally unify all parties and make it a reality. The fight was originally scheduled to take place on June the 1st, but was pushed back because of Beterbiev suffering a ruptured meniscus. In the meanwhile, we saw Bivol take a stay busy fight against Malik Zanad, and after securing the victory, we find them set to face each other in just a few days. Just before we get into the main fight itself, I just want to briefly talk about the undercard. And wait, don't skip through this part, especially all of you from the US. You might be looking at the undercard going, why do I want to watch this when I know no one on this card? Well, there are some fights which are absolute bangers, but let me just give you a few highlights. You got Ben Whittaker making his return. You probably know him for his viral style, yet he is always an entertaining watch, and that's just kicking off the card. You got Sky Nicholson, who's one of the more entertaining stars of women's boxing, defending her title. You have the returns of both Chris Eubank Jr. and Jai Opatia, which will be a good watch. And the best I think out of this undercard is the rematch between Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark. These guys faced off earlier this year in a fight which resulted in a draw, yet in a match that some people said might be a contender for fight of the year. Two brutal heavyweights put on an absolute heavyweight war, and we're set to see them once again with the rematch. All I gotta say is, don't sleep on this one. Let me know what undercard fight you guys are looking forward to down below. And before we touch on that main event, I want to make sure you fellas don't miss any of the action. Now, depending where you live, it gets a little bit funky. For all of you from the US and Canada, the card is split up with the undercard only being available on DAZN and the main event being available elsewhere, with this undercard not being on pay-per-view and coming with just a regular DAZN subscription. While for the rest of the world, it's available via DAZN pay-per-view. Similar to the Joshua and Dubois fight, unlike a lot of these pay-per-views, this card is only £19.99 in the UK, and for the rest of the world, about the same in your local currency. Really, it's a bargain considering the fights on this card. So, to not miss any of the action, head over to DAZN.com/Cloister to ensure that you're all set up and ready to go for the big night. You certainly don't want to miss any of the action. Yet, let's now start talking about the big fight. This bout is a fascinating stylistic matchup, with both fighters bringing such contrasting fighting styles, it's almost impossible to predict what might happen. So let's talk about each fighter and the possibilities. Beterbiev is known for being one of the hardest punchers in boxing. As said before, he's the only active world champion with a 100% KO rate. This power is best shown in close range fighting, where he especially thrives. His devastating short-range hooks and uppercuts are two of his biggest weapons. He also excels at cutting off the ring, applying pressure and forcing fighters into positions they don't want to be. While contrasting that, Bivol is an outstanding mover in the ring. He excels at controlling distance and dictating that range. His lateral movements is key in his ability to outbox opponents while avoiding getting trapped. He has high level hand speed and is precise, while also having good defense. He rarely takes unnecessary risks and his ring IQ is one of the highest in the sport. Bivol is highly skilled, but he faces criticism over an apparent lack of power. He relies more on technical precision and accumulation of punches rather than one-punch power. Also, another common critique is Bivol hasn't faced an opponent with the same level of power and relentless pressure as Beterbiev. I would debate he probably has seen something similar considering his amateur pedigree. But experience aside, either way, if he allows Beterbiev to close the distance, he could find himself in an unprecedented position. For Beterbiev, his critiques more surround his defense and hand speed. His aggressive style can leave him open to counters at times, and his hand speed is nowhere near the speed of Bivol's. While his power does make up for it, the more agile and elusive fighter could take advantage if he isn't completely disciplined. Additionally, although both are getting up there with age, Beterbiev is the older out of the two at 39. He does have a history of injuries which could impact his endurance in a fast-paced fight. The question turns to, have these injuries potentially affected his power output, and will age finally catch up to him? In terms of paths to victory for Beterbiev, his best strategy is to force Bivol into exchanges and make it a physical battle. Success in closing that distance and cutting off the ring is essential. He doesn't want to let Bivol dictate the pace of the fight. He needs to press forward and break Bivol's rhythm while also draining his stamina with constant pressure. Ensuring pressure round after round will put Bivol in an unprecedented position. As long as Beterbiev's stamina is high, this could be a key deciding factor. While for Bivol, he must control that distance. Keep the fight at his range. To avoid Beterbiev's power, he has to basically do what he usually does: stick and move, use quick combinations and get out of range. His superior speed and ring IQ has the ability to frustrate Beterbiev. As long as he stays disciplined and outlasts the early storm, he could exploit Beterbiev's fatigue later in the fight. Now I'm gonna put my prediction in. This one's hard, but gun to my head, who do I gotta choose? I reckon Bivol probably gets it done. I think Bivol probably does get dropped due to body shots at some stage, yet wins the decision over the 12 rounds. But I think it's a 50-50 fight that could go either way. Yet now I want you to tell me your predictions. How do you see this going down? Leave all your thoughts down below. And again, this is a card you absolutely don't want to miss, so make sure to go to DAZN.com/cloister and set yourself up for the fight early. But thanks for watching, fellas, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.